Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in here again with another sort of screen capture of where we're at in our course. So as always, we'll look in our due dates list first here. We have just completed then Unit 3, the shape of an essay, which was a lot of kind of basic content as far as the shape of an essay, shape of a paragraph, and how the general and specific statements within an essay sort of relate to one another or within a paragraph. And then we turn around quite quickly into Unit 4, although Unit 4 in many ways is a continuation of some of what we look at in Unit 3. And since it's actually Thursday morning when I'm recording this, Thursday the 30th, happy Halloween, by the way, Halloween Eve, whatever, I'm going to take a quick look into Unit 5 with us too. Oops, it looks like I missed the day there. I'll put that in. Okay, so first into Unit 4 though. This is a good example of one of the times when, you know, because I can't do these things immediately, obviously, many people might have, you know, done Unit 4 or at least started Unit 4 already. So that's why I try not to put kind of like new information in these things, or if I do have things that are, I think, really important, I'll try to get them done early. But really, this is just sort of walking you through stuff that hopefully you've looked at already. So one of the things that happens is once you've submitted your Unit 3, this material will open up for you, which is kind of a review of, you know, common errors that I see showing up. So I don't give a ton of feedback on each and every little thing that might have happened in your particular paragraph, but you can certainly look for some of these common errors. And the other thing to keep in mind is that always think of your grade in terms of the point value. Don't, like I might have mentioned before, don't get that point value and then calculate into like a percent and then a letter grade. You need to keep in mind that if you lose a couple of points for what seems like a minor mistake, well, if you then do the math and all of a sudden you got what seems like a low B for just a couple of mistakes, it doesn't seem to make sense that way. So again, you know, a few of these mistakes and you lost a couple of points, but in the grand scheme of like 1,000 points for our course, it's really not that big a deal. Especially for something like the paragraph assignment, it's really just an opportunity to make some of those mistakes. You get docked a point or two, and really that's it. So not very much, but you also then hopefully learn from that mistake so you can do it correctly when it matters more in the bigger, more formal essay assignments. So be sure to look through that if you haven't already. We then have a sample student essay, and especially for the kinds of essays that we write in this class, it really helps to read through examples. And the sample here isn't perfect. I try to point to some of the things that we're looking for in particular. There's other things that, you know, maybe we actually want to change or revise, or that don't quite fit with what we're doing, but you'll get the sense overall of this kind of essay that we'll be writing. The kind of, the scope of it, the tone, the sort of degree of formality, that sort of academic tone that we're looking for. That's what we're doing. So there's also, we'll be looking at in one of our links, or in one of our future units, a whole bunch of other sample essays. So we're not just limited to trying to figure out what to do based on the one, but this is a nice start. So again, Unit 4 is kind of a continuation of Unit 3, some of those writing principles that we look at, talking a little more specifically about thesis statements, what makes a good one, what makes a bad one, the writing process, which everybody has, even if you're not really aware of it. And like I say here, there's really no one correct, foolproof process, but I think being intentional about what your process is and not just going from get the assignment, try to write the essay. We think we're being efficient when we do that, but often it's way more nerve-wracking and time-consuming. So sometimes it's a little counterintuitive, but sometimes adding steps to the writing process, whether it's outlining, pre-writing, or having that sort of plan in place, it adds steps, but actually shortens the time it takes to write the essay. And ideally, it produces both a better essay, but also a much less stressful situation for you. So there's no one writing process, but be aware of what yours is. You might even want to kind of map it out. And if you're one of those people who feels like you invest tons of time and energy, and again, that sort of like nerve-wracking experience of writing the essay, but you never quite get the results that you want, oftentimes it's just a kind of defect in the plan somewhere. So maybe you're just not really intentional about it. Maybe you don't have some steps that you need. Maybe some steps are out of order. The good one that I like to mention to people is, I think outlining is really important, but most people do it quite early in the process, right? They make that sort of plan. I think it can be really effective to outline both here, right, to get some ideas in order, but then to read your essay and then outline what you've actually got on paper. Not what you wanted to have, but what you actually ended up with. You can see some interesting gaps, repetitions, that kind of stuff if you outline actually at a different additional place in the writing process. Okay, more reading here, elements of the essay, a brief quiz, and then a discussion board focused on the short story flight patterns. So again, you can see we're sort of continuing a little bit from the previous unit. The purpose of the discussion board is really just to get us thinking a little more deeply about the story and to practice that strategy of close reading, which is of course what you'll have to do for the essays that we write. Read those texts carefully for what's going on and what quotations could I use to back up certain ideas and that kind of stuff. Okay, so let me pop then into Unit 5, which I think is one of the most interesting that we do. Although unfortunately, the short story we're reading here, Boys and Girls, by Alice Munro, was not among the choices I could make for inclusion in our custom edition of the textbook. Again, I got most of what I wanted in there, but this is one outlier. So I've had to provide it in PDF form, which isn't that big a deal, but you do have to be aware that if you use this story in an essay, you're going to have to cite it correctly, and I've given you the citation information, although of course not in the correct format, so you'll have to like move a few things around and italicize the book title and that kind of stuff. Okay, but anyway, what we're doing is looking at this story in relation to a more maybe contemporary or commonly known artifact from popular culture, this song and video from a band called No Doubt, which some of you might be familiar with. So the thing that I'd like you to do is obviously sort of compare the two and see how both work. It's really interesting that, in fact, that the song here is called Just a Girl, and there's a phrase that repeats in this story that's really kind of like central to what's going on, and that phrase is just a girl. I mean, the parallel between the two things is really obvious, but also really specific. Like that kind of detail level is kind of interesting, almost surprising to see. The other thing that I want you to look for is the way that setting operates in the short story, which is about gender roles, and you can begin to see how certain settings are sort of attached or associated with particular genders. And then I want you to look in the video when you watch it here, in addition, of course, to the words. I've got a lyrics PDF here too, for the way in which precisely the same thing happens. The video as a visual kind of thing actually provides us kind of like a way to understand the theme of the song in these visual terms that really depend on setting. And again, it's setting as reflected, or a gender as reflected in particular settings. So I'll leave you to watch that and find out how it happens. The discussion board then that's set up here has you reflecting on exactly that kind of connection. And again, we're looking for a sort of comparison that's going on here. And I'm pushing it beyond just this big thematic connection, but are there ways that you could actually quote from the song or, the lyrics here that would connect, the short story and the video or the song together? There's a really brief little library quiz, I guess, that I'm providing to you. It's the only purpose of it is to make sure you have a working library card. The purpose of that is because our essays will require that you do research from the databases, and many of you might be doing that from off campus, and if you do so, you'll need an active, valid library card to access the databases. If you're on campus, you can do it without having to log into those databases. But if you're off campus, because the school, COD, pays for access to this material, it needs to verify that, yes, you are a student, and so you're sort of like, yes, part of the paying subscription. You're a subscriber, in other words. So it's tacked on here and is really, kind of simplistic, and you might wonder, why am I even doing this? The point is really just to make sure that everybody has a library card. So it's prepping us for what we will likely do in the future in terms of accessing databases from off campus. Okay, so that gets us through Units 4 and 5. Again, just back into our due dates here. I will update this little missing day here. It'll be Tuesday, obviously. So keep an eye on then where we're at and obviously where we're going, getting closer and closer to that first essay assignment where we'll have the chance to put all of this stuff, or much of the stuff that we've been doing, together in terms of close reading, database research, integration of sources, managing general and specific, so like where does the thesis go, where does the topic sentence go, and all that kind of stuff. So again, keep an eye on sort of that as the end goal, or at least that first point where we put a lot of this stuff together. All right, so as always, if you have questions or concerns, be in touch with me, and I will talk with everybody soon.